couple months ago, we talked about the story of a young man who had served with distinction, both on active duty and in the Virginia National Guard, who was being run out of the National Guard because he had the audacity to be a member of an organization which is actually mentioned in our Constitution. That's right. There was a militia in Virginia, a local county militia. It was not set up by him, but he joined it. And it was one that was recognized by both members of that board of supervisors, recognized by the local sheriff. So the local jurisdiction of elected representatives, of constitutional officers, recognized this institution, and he was a part of it. And they did everything from assisting the sheriff, first responder style duties. They were there to be able to operate in a crisis if something happened. All of it, all that stuff that we generally associate with, being a good member of your society, being a good member of your community. But because the organization was called a militia, he was told that he had to resign. He was told he had to leave it. And he questioned that. He said, well, I'm not sure that's accurate. I'm not sure that's a lawful order. And the end result was he had to go through boards. He had to go through hearings. He had to go through essentially something of I don't know. I'm going to let his lawyer describe it, because I don't know that I would call it anything resembling due process in the way we think of due process. And now they've come back and it's like, nope. This soldier who served with distinction, who was a soldier of the year, who the Virginia National Guard was sending around the country to compete, to demonstrate what a great soldier he was, not only got kicked out of the military, he got bumped down to E1, lost all of his rank, and got what they call an R4 code, which is to say you can never re-enlist again. This is the sort of thing that is generally reserved for the worst of the worst when they leave the military. That's what happened to Sergeant Dan Abbott. Dan, thank you for being here, and thank you, Davis Younts, for being here as well. Davis, you were the attorney in this case. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. I gave a little bit of the background here based off of what we talked about in the previous episode, but do me a favor real quick. Dan, run us through the timeline once again, just so everyone's on the same sheet of music. And then, Davis, I'm going to ask you some specific questions about how the hearing went and how you guys think that it got to this decision. So, Dan, you served on active duty. You go into the National Guard. Tell us about how long you had served up to the point where you joined this local militia, which is, again, totally recognized by the local jurisdiction that you're in, and where the issues first came up with respect to this.
Sure. So I came into the Army in 2013. I've spent a bunch of time on active duty and Q course and then 82nd. I came to Virginia and the National Guard here in 2018, and I've been with Virginia State Guard ever since. In 2023, I went to NCO of the Year competitions, or Best Warrior, Soldier of the Year, whatever you want to call it. And I did very, very well with that. I won the regional competition. I won the state competition, regional competition, went to the national competition in Alaska, and I placed number 3 in the nation up there. And then the following year, let's back up a little bit. 2020. When you had those huge gun protests at Lobby Day, the second and third order effects of that were well-regulated militia starting to pop up or come back into existence.
Let me stop you right there to give everyone some perspective on this. In 2020, Democrats took back control of the House. They had the House, the Senate, and the governor for the first time in decades. And as to be expected, right, the same people that told us they never wanted to take our firearms started submitting bills that were going to actually engage in gun confiscation and make you a felon, not just for owning a firearm, but for owning a magazine that contained more than 10 rounds, right? That was the original bill. 30,000 people showed up to Richmond to protest this. And I think out of roughly 120 local jurisdictions in Virginia, I believe 100 of them, this is boards of supervisors, town councils, et cetera, signed on to statements saying, if this passes in Virginia, we will not assist the state in enforcing it. Right? Some version of that. So I want to put this in context for everybody. This was not something that was just kind of random. This was a huge deal in Virginia. And it was the backlash was so bad by local governments, by sheriffs, by citizens, that the Democrats killed their own bill in the Senate. They realized that it was politically toxic for them. So That's the reference there where he's saying about, which led for a lot of local groups to start saying, okay, we want to take a more active role with respect to the security of our county, of our communities, et cetera. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. And just let's get the numbers right. There's 133 counties or city municipalities in Virginia, and 105 of them have passed a 2A sanctuary resolution.
There you go.
So, but yeah, and so yeah, I went to the first muster. Honestly, I'm not even sure who it was that scheduled it, but there were members of the House of Delegates, there were members of the boards of supervisors there. Matt Klein, actually a member of the Campbell County Board of Supervisors, spoke at that first muster, and I was very impressed. I was like, "Wow, this is really something. Like, this is the finest men in the community that are plugged in and involved with this. I think it's something I want to be a part of." So I got involved with it back then. Now I was on orders after January 6th to respond to the U.S. Capitol with the National Guard. Now I was not at January 6th. I was in New York with family during that block of time. It wasn't something I would have probably gone to anyways, but anyway, so I was investigated because I was the commander of the militia, or the executive officer at the time, and there was no issue with it. That went all the way up through the Pentagon, and they had no issue with it whatsoever.
So let's get this. Let's clear in everyone's mind. So 2020, after 2020 and everything that happened in the General Assembly, you start to have local groups that are organizing again, and in this one, organizing kind of with the blessing of the local government. Nothing illegal about it, right? Nothing illegal about it. You join an organization for which there's nothing illegal about it, and then you get deployed a part with the National Guard contingent to go up and assist Washington D.C. police and whatnot after January 6th.
Correct.
You get sent up there, and red flag. Oh my gosh, this guy's a part of this militia in Campbell County. Can this guy be trusted up in January 6th? What did the National Guard, which is to say the tag and whatnot, what did they determine at that time?
They determined that there was absolutely no issue whatsoever. I had face-to-face conversations with Brigadier General Gallagher, who was the land component commander, and he told me point blank, yeah, we've done all of our research. We did all of the homework. We know exactly who you are and what your organization is and what it's about, and we have no issue.
It has become so difficult for parents to know what they can trust when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to music, and yes, when it comes to books. But that is where Brave Books comes in, because Brave Books makes pro-God, pro-America content that you can trust with your child. They make compelling stories that your child will love to read and that you don't have to worry about. So what I want you to do right now is go to bravebooks.com/Nick, because if you use code Nick, you're going to get 20% off your first order. So again, you're looking for gifts over the holiday season, maybe for your kids, maybe for your grandkids, maybe for just, I don't know, somebody's kids. And you want to make sure that you're actually giving them good, wholesome, healthy, educational content. Brave Books. So that's, once again, bravebooks.com/Nick. Use code Nick at checkout. You're going to get 20% off your first order. So that's a little gift for you as you're giving a gift to somebody else. Go check it out. So you go up there, they don't have any issue. They say you can stay in the Guard and you can stay in the militia. And what is it? 2 years later, they send you to Soldier of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
3 years later, yep.
3 years later, they send you to Soldier of the Year. So again, we're talking about 3 years have gone by now since this has been looked into, investigated by the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not only saying, yeah, you can say we don't see a legal problem with this, but now they're saying, and we would like you to go and represent the entire Virginia National Guard to show how great we are. Mm-hmm. in a series of state and regional and U.S.-wide competitions.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So at this part, we've established that apparently you are not you're not a threat to democracy. Good to know. Okay. Then all of a sudden we get a new tag. This is what, 2024?
Yeah, this would have been 24, I believe.
Okay, so 2024, we get a new tag in Virginia, and they've decided that this is illegal for you to be a member of this organization. What sort of justification? Actually, Davis, would you mind jumping in here a little bit, because I want to be able to get a legal opinion on this. What was the legal argument that they made that essentially overturned the previous tag's decision on why Dan couldn't be a part of this local group?
There wasn't one.
Well, I mean, they did come out, because I looked at some of it and they said that, well, they essentially had an opinion, right? Their legal counsel had an opinion that if I remember correctly, it was if you were a member of the National Guard, that represents an official position, and therefore you cannot be a member of another organization which has some sort of like martial responsibilities, such as what they would call essentially a different militia or a different military unit. So they're essentially saying that
Right.
we are the authorized military unit you can belong to. If you belong to this one, you can't belong to this concept of a local militia. Is that more or less correct?
Right, and they which they like to do in these situations is they created a hypothetical, right? So they create this hypothetical that there might be a conflict between the state mission under the tag and the local mission under the Campbell County militia. Would never happen if you were in the National Guard and the governor calls you up and you're on state orders. That's what you do, and everyone understands. There's no conflict there, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's just how it would happen. But really, they wanted to paint sort of a hypothetical, and they were just uncomfortable with it. And I mean, there's a lot of sort of ideology behind it. But right, their justification was, we don't like this idea that you could be part of both. So if you're a member officially of the National Guard, we're going to say you can't also be a member of a local militia. The problem is, under Virginia law, it's very, very clear. Every citizen of the state of Virginia is a member of the unorganized militia. So you're talking about the organized militia and the unorganized militia. Organized militia is the National Guard. Unorganized militia is everyone else that can be organized by these counties.
Yeah, it's the old George Mason quote that, what is the militia? It is the body of the people. So
that's right.
So let me ask you this. Did they point to anything in Virginia code, federal code, or USMC or UCMJ as the basis for their claim?
Not to justify it. They just cited the authority of the tag, who has authority over military members and members of the Guard, but they provided no justification for limiting constitutional rights or sort of going against and circumventing Virginia law, the Virginia Constitution, Virginia statutes.
Okay, so all right, so if I understand this correctly, their argument is that obviously we give deference to military commanders. They have the authority to enforce UCMJ. They have the authority to issue lawful orders, which aren't necessarily specifically mentioned within UCMJ, because how could you mention every potential lawful order? So their claim is that the general has the ability, the tag has the ability to give a lawful order which says you are not permitted to be a part of this organization. Your response to that was, that seems to be a violation of it, if nothing else, if not the specific letter, at least the spirit of the tradition of the militia within the United States, the recognition of what comprises the militia, the whole justification for the Second Amendment when it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms is not because every person is automatically constantly drilling as part of a well-regulated militia, but because they can be called up to serve within said capacity. So that's your guys' argument, and their response to that was what?
So, yeah, we prepared a detailed argument, constitutional law, case law, precedent. It was a treatise, right? It's like 18 plus pages laying this out very, very clearly. And their response was, months later, essentially one line in an email: we've reviewed the policy and we're confident it's a lawful order.
Okay. So at this point,
and we even asked questions, right? And again, just to hit on this point, as a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force myself, and Dan did the right thing. This is what a military member is supposed to do. If you have a question about the lawfulness of an order, you ask questions, you ask for clarification, you try to do the right thing. That's what we did. And the explanation was not to answer our questions, because we had specific questions, not to answer our questions, not to address the law, not to address the constitutional issues, and just say, we're confident, we're good to go.
Okay. All righty. So at this point, you have to go through a legal process, right, to determine, is this a lawful order? So what did that process look like?
So the problem with this process is the Virginia National Guard chose to do everything administratively and not to go into the background that people need to, we don't have to do a class on the Uniform Code of Military Justice or how administrative investigations work. But in the military, commanders have tremendous authority to conduct all kinds of administrative investigations and do administrative processes. Here, the tag, the National Guard, each state tag, has the authority to recommend someone for administrative separation. And what you get in these administrative proceedings, it's not a court-martial, it's not a criminal proceeding, it's not a court proceeding. It's purely administrative, it's purely set up and directed by command, and it really is due process light. You don't have full confrontation rights. You don't have full discovery rights. It's a limited process. And ultimately, this board makes recommendations to the tag, and then the tag can accept those recommendations or not. So it's due process light. But the key to keep in mind for these administrative processes is the tag gets to pick the members that sit on this board.
All right, so let me see if I understand this correctly. There is a dispute over the legality of an order. And the process that they use to determine the legality of the order is the person that issues the order gets to pick the members of the board, which then determine whether or not the order was lawful.
That's right.
I mean, is it really as simple
Honestly,
as what I just
Nick,
described?
There was never even a discussion about whether or not the order was lawful because they had already moved to separate me.
Okay,
So
so
all we're determining is
let me
whether
get
or not I can stay.
let me get this straight. They just decided, nope, it's lawful. We have decided it is lawful, and there's no outside process necessary to do so other than we think it is.
Correct.
Okay, and then you say, I respectfully, I don't think it is. I would like, and they say, okay, well, respectfully, we're going to kick you out of the military unless you do what we want.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go before the board and I'm going to try to make my case. But the board at this point is not even determining whether or not this is a lawful order. They're just determining whether or not you're guilty of serious misconduct.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay. All right. And the people that get to decide whether or not you're guilty of serious misconduct are the people picked by the guy accusing you of serious misconduct.
Accurate.
Correct.